incredible program we had last week. I had several Rotarians say it was maybe one of the top 3 programs they ever had the pleasure of being a part of. Shan, what an unbelievable job you did in leading us in that discussion and getting Melody here. I took the video back to my company. It's made a huge impact on my employees. And just to call out 3 of her calls to action. I love this one. Don't just stand there, do something, right? Champions adapt to new information and circumstances. Don't dwell on the good old days. And then lastly, probably my favorite one, which I reflect on still. I think George Lucas told her this. You got to forgive people for being human, man, no matter how difficult that is. So Kevin, we are looking forward to another very powerful program to follow that up. Since it's the beginning of the month, it's also our time to take a moment to recognize member accomplishments. And I wanted to call out a few. And if you'll hold your applause to the end, we'll recognize everybody at the same time. Firstly, Clark Dean. Is Clark here today? I think he's probably in Honduras, as he always is. Clark has stepped up to chair the YMCA of Metro Atlanta Board of Directors. Moreover, he and his wife, Christy, are the 2025 Foundation Gala honorees at the Rotary Club of Buckhead for all the work he has done for the YMCA. Secondly, Yelena Upova has been named to the Forbes 2024 America's Top CPA list. Mary Moore is celebrating 30 years at Cook's Warehouse. Sonny Deriso is named one of the 2025 Georgia trustees by the Georgia Historical Society. Sonny was so instrumental in bringing the governor here earlier this year. Jimmy Etheridge will be an independent director on the board of directors for Southern Company, starting on April the 1st. And then Morgan Shaw Parker will be honored as a woman trailblazer at the 2025 Night of a Million Dreams by the Girl Scouts of America. So let's congratulate all those members for their accomplishments. And then again, membership committee must be doing a great job. Take a look at all of the most influential Georgians for 2025 in Georgia Trend magazine, as well as notable Georgians in 2025 in Georgia Trend magazine. I don't know what the difference is between influential and notable. I would assume they're 2 sides of the same coin, but congratulations to all those members as well. All right. As I mentioned at the outset, I am very pleased to welcome to the stage President-elect Kevin Greiner. He will be leading our panel discussion today in and around sustainable power and economic development that industry develops in our state. As I said to you a moment ago, I thought about Lonnie Johnson here a few weeks ago saying sustainable power was this generation's biggest challenge. And AI and data is going to be the next generation's challenge. So I'm sure you'll be able to touch on those themes as well. For those of you who don't know Kevin, he has served as Gas South's president and CEO since the company's founding in 2006. Gas South is one of the Southeast's largest energy marketers. In December 2020, Gas South closed the acquisition of Infinite Energy, which more than doubled its annual revenues to over $1 billion. And made the company the largest retail natural gas provider in Georgia and Florida. Kevin was recognized by Georgia Trend magazine as 2021's most respected business leader. He has also been recognized by the Atlanta Business Chronicle as one of the most admired CEOs in both 2019 and 2021. What happened in 2020? Made some tough decisions. Kevin serves as a volunteer and board member with numerous non-for-profit organizations. Excuse me. His board of director responsibilities have included the YMCA of Metro Atlanta, the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, and the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education. So Kevin, I would welcome you to the stage, please, so that you can introduce our panelists and lead us in this important discussion. Thank you.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this incredible power panel. We needed a little diversity, so I'm the guy on the podium here. It was supposed to be Katie Kirkpatrick, just so you guys know, but she had a last-minute thing, and so I am very, very honored, of course, to be here, and I was happy, more than happy, to be able to help out with this incredible panel with these really, really incredible women who are terrific leaders. I'm going to introduce them, going from your right over to the left side here, and I'm going to start with Commissioner Tricia Pridemore, who has been a longtime friend of mine for many, many years, and she was named to the commission back in about 7 years ago, and has done a fabulous job of being commission chair at the Georgia Public Service Commission and serving in that capacity as a commissioner for that full 7-year period. A couple of things about her that's really interesting. She's an entrepreneur. She actually had a technology company with her husband that they sold. She worked quite a bit with Governor Deal, including serving as his executive director for the Office of Workforce Development, and currently she serves as president of NARUC, which is the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners. This is a big deal. It's an organization that represents all of the public service commissions across the entire United States, and Commissioner Pridemore was chosen as the representative of that organization and has just done a fantastic job leading that group. So a big round of applause and welcome to Commissioner Pridemore. Secondly, Beth Lowry from Holder Construction. So Beth has been with Holder for some 30 years, but was recently named CEO of the firm. And you guys all know Holder Construction. You know Tommy Holder, of course. What a fantastic company with an incredible legacy. Fun fact about Holder is that they've been in the space of constructing all sorts of buildings, including data centers, and did one of the first data centers in Georgia. It was actually the UPS data center all the way back in 1992. So these things have been a thing since 1992. They're not the thing that they are today, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, because back then I asked, how big was it? And she said it was about a 5 megawatt load. Well, today there are data centers being built that are 300 megawatts in capacity. That would be the amount of power that these facilities need. So we're going to really lean into some of the data center construction with Beth, and congratulations certainly too on your ascension there to the presidency of just a really historic firm here. So big hand to Beth. She's also a Gator, by the way, and we have a nice office down in Gainesville, so we bonded over that a little bit. I didn't realize that. And then last but certainly not least, Kim Green. Many of you all know, of course, Kim. Be surprised if anybody hadn't met Kim in this room. Kim is the CEO now of Georgia Power. She also was CEO of Southern Company Gas, so I was sort of one of her largest customers, or Gas South was, for many, many years while she was in that capacity. Of course, she oversaw Atlanta Gaslight as well as their other subsidiaries as part of that, so she certainly has a big gas background. Worked for TVA for a while too as CFO, and started her career actually at Southern Company, and Kim and I, fun fact, got to know each other way back when, in the early 2000s. I was working at Southern Company as well. Not many folks realize, but Gas South was actually once the original Southern Company gas. And Southern Company at that time, way back, decided to sell the company to our parent company, Cobb EMC, and Kim was actually the person who negotiated that sale. So I was in a weird position between the two. And but so I always say that Kim closed one door for me at Southern Company and opened a new one at Gas South.
And you have done an incredible job, Kevin. It's been wonderful to watch your and your company's success. So
well,
congratulations.
Thank you. And we could not have done it without you guys, because Atlanta Gaslight is literally the best local distribution company for natural gas in the country. And they keep things rolling from an infrastructure standpoint. So really appreciate the partnership with you guys. But a big round of applause for Kim as well. All right, so we're going to get right into it. We're going to talk first about energy in Georgia. And, you know, energy really, when you think about it, is the lifeblood of an economy, right? You need power, you need natural gas to be able to live, to do what we do, to drive economic activity. And the federal level, of course, we have a Department of Energy, we have a federal Energy Regulatory Commission. They oversee parts of the value chain, getting energy moving around the country. Each state then also has a Public Service Commission, and that regulates the provision of utilities like electricity, natural gas to consumers, and they really balance affordability, reliability, and safety. So Commissioner Primer, can you give our club a little bit of an overview of the PSC and how it really oversees our energy systems?
Fantastic. Thank you, Kevin. First off, it's great to be with y'all today. I'm also a proud Rotarian, member of the Rotary Club of Marietta, and never turned down an opportunity to speak with fellow Rotarians. So I've served on the commission for 7 years, as Kevin stated. Every state in the country has a public utility or a public service commission, as well as the American territories. Our job is to provide safe, reliable, affordable service to everyone, consumers, business, etc. You know that electric utilities represent just 5% of the nation's GDP, but yet nothing else works without it. Think about that. So the work that we do to regulate utilities is to balance all of the interests and ensure that we have generation, transmission, and distribution of key energy to anyone who needs it. And we are at this point in our nation at the precipice of incredible demand. It's part of the reason why I ran for NARUC president, is to be able to help other states mine these waters the way that Georgia has over the years. You're going to hear me talk a little bit today about the fact that we are special. I don't go around telling other people that their babies are ugly or that they're not special, but they know that we are. They know the way that we have a regulatory and utility system in our state has an eye toward economic development with a keen eye on reliability. You don't hear about Georgia talking about necessary brownouts to manage load. You don't hear about us having issues with regional transmission operators where they're throttling who can use what when. Our decision is to ensure that you have what you need so that you can produce, so that you can grow your business. It's part of the formula that's made Georgia for 11 straight years the #1 state in which to do business, and we still have residential rates that are 15% below the national average. We're doing this to ensure that we can remain open for business and that this is a great place to live, work, and raise a family. So every utility commission has a different construct. Everyone has a slightly different purpose. Our purpose is to be able to set the standard that other states in the Southeast, the West, the Mid-Atlantic want to be able to follow. And then also for us to work with our friends that are in other states, like New England, that have different objectives to be able to help them see that there's ways that we can help them attain their goals at the same time. So I'm proud to serve the entire state of Georgia on the commission, and certainly proud to serve as the president of NARUC as we help state commissions and state commissioners mine this exciting time in our country.
Thanks, Commissioner. Awesome stuff. I learned a really fun fact, actually, at the NARUC conference last week. One of the speakers said that the S&P Utilities Index, it's 31 of the biggest utility companies, has an aggregate market value of about $1 trillion. That's the same as Tesla, one company. It's about half of what NVIDIA is worth. So think about that. Go out and buy utility stocks, people. Right, Kim?
You said that.
Thank you, Kevin.
But I thought that was amazing. And I actually ChatGPT'd it, and it was true. So it was a true fact. I looked it up. So it blew me away, actually. So, but our country really is in the beginning stages of an incredible expansion of demand for energy. And I'm sure you guys have read quite a bit about that. Data centers, reshoring of manufacturing, EVs, liquefied natural gas. These are things that are all creating just enormous demand for energy, really all forms. And that represents and presents really true opportunities, but also challenges for us as a society. So Georgia, as Commissioner Pridemore mentioned, is one of the states that's seeing some of the strongest economic activity in the entire United States. And we're seeing it in each of those 4 areas that I mentioned. So I'd like to go to Kim and talk to Kim a little bit about how our how our state is really positioning ourselves to meet this type of increase in energy demand.
Well, thank you very much. And again, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here. What's happening in Georgia, and the commissioner talked about it, is unique and it's special. And I'd love people to remember a few things when you leave here today that are really important, and that is that we have a vertically integrated, state-regulated utility. Vertically integrated, what does that mean? It means that at least at Georgia Power and, at Georgia Power, we are responsible for planning for the future and owning and operating the power plants where the electrons are made, and the transmission, the large wires, and the distribution, the smaller wires to your home. We own and operate all of that. That is not the case in all of the country. And about 25, 30 years ago, people thought, well, all electrons look alike, so shouldn't we create competition? And shouldn't we have open markets? And so there were a lot of different market structures that were developed across the country. And now in many parts of the country, there are owners of power plants, and then there are owners of transmission lines, excuse me, and then there are owners of distribution lines. And what we do that makes us special is that we plan all of that for the future. And we work constructively with our Public Service Commission, and in fact, we're going through a process right now where we file what we call an integrated resource plan. And we look 20 years into the future and give our best estimate as to what the future looks like in terms of what our load growth looks like and what resources are going to be needed to serve the load. And because we plan the entire system, in some cases we might decide that we need a new power plant, or a transmission line could be better, or maybe some distribution assets could be better. That's all done by different entities in many parts of the country. And those are the people that the commissioner is alluding to, who will come to each of us now and say, we wish we could put our genie back in our bottle. We tried an experiment. It hasn't really worked over the longer term for our customers. And now that we're on this precipice of this new sort of industrial revolution, there are other parts of the country that can't respond. We can respond. And because of this process where we go through transparently every 3 years with the commission, what we think our load growth will look like and what the asset base will look like, there are really no surprises. It's transparent. People understand what's coming. We have an all-of-the-above approach, which includes all types of fuel sources, nuclear being one of those, and you all should be very proud. Georgia is the only state in the country that has brought on new nuclear in the past 30 years from scratch. And we are the home, thank you. We are the home of the largest generator of clean energy in the country. That could not have happened without the structure that we have, the constructive structure with the Public Service Commission. This vertically integrated state-regulated model is valuable, it's viable, it's critical to being able to provide clean, safe, reliable, and affordable power.
Thanks, Kim. Commissioner Pridemore, obviously the PSC has a huge role in ensuring that our energy systems are adequate, that they're reliable, that they are safe. Can you talk a little bit about what that oversight looks like and how it's really influenced the construction of a plant like Plant Vogtle and your role in ensuring that that could happen and that it was overseen well?
To Kim's point, that integrated resource planning process, we spend a year working on it, a year doing it, and the third year executing it, and all the RFPs that go with it. So then we turn around and start the whole process all over again. So this is part of the DNA of what the commission does and has done for decades. I had the opportunity to speak before Congress last year and was asked by a sweet gentleman from Texas. He said, so when the power goes out and the power's not reliable, who is responsible for that? And I leaned up into my microphone and I looked at him and I said, I am. I am. Because fundamentally, it's PSC commissioners' responsibility to ensure reliability. And we ensure reliability through that planning process. Now, does that mean that, we sit through long hearings? Does that mean that we endure protests and negative press? I don't do this job to be famous. I do this job because I fully understand that somebody has to make hard decisions that benefit the rest of the state. And so we try to encourage those other states that would like to put their genies back in bottles, how to do that and what's the easiest way for them to protect customers and ensure reliability through that process. In some states, we have 3 states right now that are considering it, but it's an incredibly difficult, arduous process.
Yeah, and being around a lot of these public service commissions, you hear a lot of different stories of how those relationships work. And I will tell you that in Georgia, we have a much higher level of trust. We have much higher collaboration. Now, that doesn't mean that our PSC isn't tough on some of us, including my company, Gas South, Georgia Power.
Heck, you say.
And I've gotten that call sometimes from Commissioner Pridemore from time to time. But, but the point is that we hash things out. We're able to have good, honest conversations. There are a lot of other states where it is very much, everything is always arm's length. And I think that sometimes you lose the ability to actually talk about issues when you're set up in such a, juxtaposed sort of way. So I think the way that we have things in Georgia really does work well and is the envy really of a lot of the country. Beth, we're going to go to you next. Holder, it's one of our region's leading construction companies, of course. And of late, data centers have obviously been a really, really big growth area. And you guys are one of the leading firms that are building those facilities. You're also a go-to firm for green buildings in general, highly energy efficient buildings. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about the trends you're seeing from the construction trade and the desire to really design high efficiency into buildings, whether they're data centers, new manufacturing plants, or commercial buildings.
Sure. Is this working? We're good?
Yep.
So data centers definitely get a bad rap in the paper and, generally they're all about power consumption, and that is a true statement that they are heavy demand use for energy. But I think before we go there, we should talk a little bit about the paradox of how we get there. There's probably not a person, as Tricia said, we all depend on electricity to do everything. But we also all now depend on technology to do everything. And so there's lots of studies that came out. I took some of the stats from that. But there's a recent study by PwC that says that the average consumer uses 21 connected devices to their home every day. I bet you if we polled the room, we're probably all teetering around 100 connected devices. When you think, my oven is a connected device to the internet today. And so the paradox is that technology has definitely made us smarter. It helps us with our own power consumption. There's monitoring, Nest systems and everything else help us run a more energy efficient home. It also requires that data storage to go somewhere. And so you just think about streaming for TV to, charging your electric vehicle at night to all the power consumption and all the data that is being stored somewhere. Where does that go? So Georgia is an awesome state for data centers, primarily from what Kim and Tricia have shared, because we have really, really good regulators who help us do it smartly. But also, we have a strong, robust amount of corporate end users that are located here. And so it's great to have your data storage, close to your primary business. We also have an incredible amount of tech engineers that are also, there's a lot more tech jobs here today. So we have a great overall tech business community and climate. But for the sustainability question, data centers are really driven by what's called a PUE, so power use energy. And it is the total facility usage divided by the over IT usage, so the servers. And as we mentioned back in the day when we were doing a lot of enterprise data centers, and as corporations, we had all our data in one data center that we all owned and managed. The overall consumption was a lot lower because the server capacity was a lot lower. But today, the average data center is 50 megawatts to 100 megawatts, and that's all by just driven by the compute power of the servers. And so what is really been kind of a big push is how do you cool the data center more efficiently, and how do you do it without using more water? And so today's technology, you'll hear in the data center world, liquid cooling. So that's bringing cooling directly to the servers and to the chips and using a closed loop system to do that. It's a lot more energy efficient. And 10 years ago, that PUE was about a 2.5, score of a 2.5. Now it's down to a 1 to a 1.2. And so the big tech companies, the Googles and Microsofts and Metas and Amazons, they are really pushing the envelope on being highly energy efficient and very smart with the use of water, and that sort of drives the rest of the industry there. So I think it's super important to understand there's a lot more advancements, but to be down to a PUE of a 1.0 to a 1.5 is pretty remarkable given the scale of some of these facilities today.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's yeah. Go ahead.
And to Beth, to your point, especially considering the advancement of technology. So my business, we used to utilize a data center. We purchased data center space off of 5 nines uptime, so it's up 99.99% of the time. We were in the email business, so that's an SMTP packet transfer of 10 points. We're looking at a search engine packet transfer of 50 to 150. The difference now is with AI, it could be up to a 1 million point packet transfer, which means it's going all throughout the web and it's doing many more queries than we've had before. So to get to these type of sustainability numbers, while the technology has advanced and the packet transfer quantity has advanced, it's huge.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention, there's, the LEED building standard is amazing at helping produce sort of an overall guidance to help facility users, benchmark their efficiencies. But there's probably 3 real ways that we can build a sustainable data center. 1, it's driving down the PUE. 2, it's sourcing the power from clean energy, which Georgia is a great state for that. And then 3, it's the optimization of the servers within the data center and using data capacity at 2 in the morning when we're not at a peak load for the consumer. And so really working with Georgia Power and the other EMCs to how can we maximize the use of that data inside the facility when we're not in peak load.
Yeah, efficiency is so important. It's also important that we have low emission or no emission power, right, Kim? And you guys at Georgia Power, as well as our friends at Oglethorpe, who provide the power to our EMCs around the state, are really jointly responsible for ensuring that the generation mix is that we have the generation capacity, but then the mix is also clean and low emission. Can you talk a little bit about how things have changed in Georgia just over the last 25 years?
Sure, and Kevin's exactly right. So Vogtle, of course, is a nuclear power plant outside of Augusta, and we're a partnership with Oglethorpe, MEAG, the city of Dalton, so we are all generating those clean electrons, and everybody in Georgia is benefiting from that clean power. If you think about the mix of energy, 2007 was Georgia Power's peak emission year, and at that time, about 70% of our energy came from coal-fired plants. That has dramatically shifted. Last year, the amount of power that came out of coal was less than 20%. So it's gone from 70 to 20%. We've added more nuclear. We've added a lot of solar. We're adding batteries. And so we have got a much cleaner mix than we once did. And in fact, the CO2 emissions have gone down by over 60%. Our sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxides, mercury emissions, all of those are down by over 90%. So we have a much cleaner energy mix than we did just a decade and a half ago. And again, we'll continue to add solar, add batteries. We have the most technologically advanced coal plants in the world. And so we should feel very good about the energy mix that you all are using and that these data centers are very attracted to. They want clean energy, they want reliable energy, they want affordable energy, and that's what they're finding in Georgia.
And interestingly, that has happened without a specific, renewable portfolio standard. It sort of happened organically as we've seen a shift in that whole generation mix, right?
Yes, that's right. And what Kevin's mentioning is that there are some states in the country that sort of put in rules for a certain amount of renewable power, and our commission has not necessarily done that. The state hasn't done that. But we have continued to increase the amount of renewable energy in our mix dramatically over those decade and a half.
Great stuff. Let's, if we can, we'll talk a little workforce because, all of this additional power is going to require a lot of specialized labor. I remember reading that Vogtle for a while was the largest construction project that was happening in the state. That went on obviously for years. Power plants in general are going to require a lot of data centers, new manufacturing facilities. How do we ensure that we have the trained workforce to build and operate the energy infrastructure that we're going to need? And how are we ensuring that we've got that group ready to go? And Beth, maybe we'll start with you on this one since you guys are very close to this.
Yeah, we need lots more of skilled trades in the state. It kind of be a call to all of you to help promote this to, every middle schooler and above that these are great jobs, and in the state of Georgia, I pulled some stats together. There were 30,000 direct jobs from data centers in, our state last year, and 176,000 that were for indirect and induced jobs. So indirect and induced jobs are companies like Holder, the supply chain that provides the data center. The direct jobs are all the engineers that are creating the software and the technology and everything that gets stored in the data centers. These are all really, really good, high-paying jobs. And most, you'll read in the paper about, there's a gigawatt data center coming to Georgia. Well, first off, that's going to take about 10 years to build. Those are usually done in phases, and they're usually in fairly rural areas of the state. And so this is a good pipeline of good quality skilled labor jobs. And so how are we getting ready? We've got great partnerships with the Technical College System of Georgia, the K-12 network. Construction Ready has done a great job of going to all aspects of the state and promoting construction skilled trades to high schools. With the skills competition that just happened last week, where it's just an incredible way to expose the youth to these trades. So we've still got a lot of work to do. We've probably got close to 1 million in shortage to support the 10-year demand, and that's mostly just because it continues to be an aging workforce. A lot of the data center construction today, with the high demand, with the manufacturing and everything else we've got going on in the state, we've got a lot of labor coming in state to do that. Now, they may stay and they may choose to make Georgia their home, which would be great for us, but we still have a lot of work to do to continue to promote the trades. And just to give context, in the U.S., data center construction was up 69% last year from 2023, which is an incredible growth market for all U.S. construction. The second closest was manufacturing that was at 20%. So office buildings, there haven't been a lot of those going on. Airport construction's up. Data center construction has just been great for the entire industry, building small business opportunities and, again, continuing to have sustained good skilled work for our workforce all over the state.
And of course, for all of our real estate involved members, that day will come back, right, David Altman?
They're all just doing data centers now, right, David?
Yeah. We'll be back to multifamily, mixed use, and offices before long. Yeah,
well,
go ahead, Kim.
that's certainly happening in the Savannah region. And look, the Hyundai facility is cranking out cars now, automobiles, and Jennifer Zeller gave me some stats earlier. The Savannah region typically would have expected about 1,000 new jobs a year. they just got 20,000 new jobs in a year. And we are very active in convening, providing frameworks for communities and regions to utilize to identify the needs, identify the sources, and we do that all over the state. Many of you know that Georgia Power is involved in workforce development efforts, certainly in many communities in the state and often in partnership with the economic development organizations in those communities. Selfishly, we also need our own workforce. We need a lot of folks in the trade. We have partnered with the Technical College System of Georgia to create a lineman apprentice school. And last year we hired 100 graduates out of these programs. So we are directly benefiting and by being involved and partnering with the wonderful organizations within the Atlanta metro region, but certainly across the state. And it's really important that we recognize that a lot of this is happening very quickly. And, we have a responsibility to help match that. It's wonderful. And, even in the Savannah region where I mentioned that 1,000 jobs or 20,000 jobs, it could have even been more. But we also helped work with that region to identify for some of the suppliers of that facility, maybe they should be up in the Macon area, or maybe they should be over closer to Augusta. And so to sort of try to balance to the extent we can workforce and economic development, and really it's a regional and statewide approach.
Something that's a little techie and kind of cool. A lot of the data centers today are actually built on what are called skids. And so you'll build like the electrical room or the mechanical room off-site, and then you'll skid it in by truck like a big trailer. What's so important about that and what's great about that is you can put the manufacturing for that into a solid community, and they can build over and over again. So your workforce can live in Bartow County and just come back to the same location every day and build their, and then we just assemble that, all together on site. So those kind of jobs are becoming more sustainable and long-term for those communities, which is great.
Yeah, and Commissioner Prodmore, of course, you worked in workforce development, so I know this is a theme that's near and dear to your heart as well, and how things changed since, you were really in that space working for the governor back then.
The one thing that has remained constant is the necessity for skilled labor. Just has. And the one thing that I think that has changed the greatest to the benefit has been the increase in what skilled craftsmen make. We're looking at this huge attraction into this space, and it's an incredibly attractive job offering. There's some days where I think, you know what, I could hang it all up and go be a plumber. Seriously. I'm looking at you, David. Yeah, absolutely. But the challenges with this they're not going to go away. They're only going to increase by an order of magnitude. Not just Atlanta and Georgia, but our nation's need for skilled craft tradesmen and electrons and molecules is only going to increase as we all come to realize the national security imperative of us beating China in this race in AI. So last year, through the conversation that was taking place during the election, it was a nonpartisan issue. Everyone agreed that we know that as a country, we want our own technological capabilities on United States soil, and to be able to do that, we have to be able to grow and build. We want to protect the technology companies that are based here in the United States that are world-class globally, and we want to be able to protect that intellectual property as we grow this out. And so to do this, we're going to need skilled labor, molecules, and electrons. And as many of that as we can do through the smart way that we do things in Georgia, we should.
Absolutely. Well said. All right. President Adrian asks that we always come up with a call to action, which I think is terrific. Let's go around the horn, and we'll start with Kim. Kim, what would be your call to action for this Rotary Club as it relates to power and economic growth?
Well, I think it's going to be two, and one is to understand the workforce issues. And if any of you have sons or daughters or nieces or nephews, look, we love Georgia Tech and Georgia State and Florida sometimes.
No, we don't.
And college-educated workforce is really, really important, but the trades workforce is really, really important. And there are bright futures for young people who want to go into the trades. And we need to sort of get rid of any sort of belief that somehow that is not a great career. It's a great career. And then secondly, I would just ask all of you, be as educated as possible about issues related to power. I would love to talk to you all afternoon. Power and natural gas, energy. Look, we all take it for granted. I ask some college educated kids, where does power come from? And they all point to the wall or the sun. And so this industry has just really not done a great job of educating people about the business. And it's really quite a complicated business, but one that you read a lot about in the paper. And anytime you know anything about any subject that you read in the paper, you know when you read it and it's not quite right, that subject's not quite right, just please reach out and make sure that any questions you have about what you're reading, something you'd like to know more about, please get your questions answered and let us help where we can.
Thanks, Kim. Beth, anything you would add?
Yeah, I just kind of echoing what Kim's saying on the workforce for sure, being a good advocate and steward to help educate and support workforce and skilled trades, but also just to be, kind of a smart economic investor in our state and help educate our legislators and educate our media and other business leaders that the data center market and advanced manufacturing is good business for Georgia. I mean, there was a $25 billion economic impact because of companies coming into Georgia and choosing to do their facility construction here. And that's good for our local tax revenues, that's good for our growth, that's good for lots of things. And so I hope all of you trust the incredible leadership we have with our power utilities and with our Public Service Commission to help do that sustainably and do it wisely, and just be educated and help, be factual when people ask about, well, why should we allow these facilities in our state?
Yep. Thanks, Beth. Take us home, Commissioner.
So as a fellow Rotarian, one of the things that I think about with my job and my role as a utility regulator is it fair to all concerned? And I know that all of us go about our professional lives and our personal lives, and sometimes the Rotary oath rings in the back of our heads. But I can tell you that a constructive regulatory environment is designed to be fair to all concerned because it creates consistency and reliability. And if you maintain consistency and reliability, affordability will come. Why? Because it's fair to all concerned. And so I hope that at some point, if you ever need anything out of the Georgia Public Service Commission, call me. We all five of us work to serve this state that we all love very much. We work to preserve safety, reliability, and affordability. But in the back of my mind and my decisions, I'm always thinking, is it fair to all concerned? So when you call me, that's how I'll know you're a Rotarian.
Thank you. Well said.
Thank you,
President
Kevin,
Adrian.
for leading us in that discussion. Commissioner, we'll take you up on that.
Please do.
The Secretary of State gave us his cell phone number and he was inundated, so be careful for what you ask for. I think we have time to open it up for Q&A for members if there are any additional questions for our panel today. There's a microphone right over here. David, they picked on you, so I knew you were going to be up first.
Thank you. A couple of questions. One, with all the demand that these data centers are, the power demands that they're creating, is there a limit to how many of these we can build and still provide the power? In other words, is there a limit to this? And if so, kind of how is that being, Patricia, are you the gatekeeper for that? And then secondly, this is expensive stuff to build. Obviously, there are pricing implications to the consumer. In particular, how do you protect kind of the low, moderate income residential user from these higher prices?
So, David, great question, and great to see you again. So I'll take that first because, back in April 2024, we passed an interim IRP provisioning Georgia Power to build 7,100 megawatts of new capacity to serve data centers and onshoring of manufacturing. When we did that, we instituted rules in that docket that said that those that need the power, generation, transmission, distribution, will pay for that. We put some terms around that. Georgia Power enters into 15-year contracts with these companies. They also enter into a construction schedule of cost to where they pay for that as it goes. That's important because that protects the residential rate base. That allows us to continue to be 15% below the national average. But the greatest level of protection that it gives is it shows that the data center company means it. And we have yet to have a data center company, and they're all who you think they are, come and talk to me, come and talk to the members of the commission, and be squishy about what they wanted. They all come out very clearly and say, here's what we need, here's when we need it by, and not a single one of them has backed off from their willingness to pay for it. That tells me, as their regulator, they're serious and they mean business. I think, David, to your point, where the constraint starts to come into the marketplace is as states like Georgia, Virginia, Texas, those of us that are really serious about meeting this demand, and the demand is met by the big 5 hyperscalers, AWS, Google, Meta, et cetera, Microsoft, that now we're in the second tier. I think it's in the second tier where they're looking more at socialized costs, where the contract terms are not as firm as they are right now. But right now, at this beginning stage, I've yet to have a company that has said, that's too much, and I can wait 10 years.
Stephanie, one final question.
So, Beth, you were talking about the number of interconnected devices and how dependent we are on all of that, but I also think about how dependent data centers, our power grid are as well to that technology. And so the one thing that I worry about is how susceptible and what do you do to protect us from hackers that could take down those systems?
So we invest mightily in cybersecurity, and protecting our grid is paramount to us. And so we had a leader who, for Southern Company for 12 years, who really led in the entire industry in terms of the evolution of cybersecurity. So I would say we are as protected as anyone. That doesn't mean that somebody can't get through, so it's about how we protect ourselves, and then it's about resilience. How do we respond if something happens? And we work really hard to make sure that doesn't happen. But I will say, from a data center perspective, data centers, at least so far, for the most part, because they need 100% reliability, we do not design our system for 100% reliability. And so most data centers have backup generation that will meet their needs. So they have belts and suspenders in the event of certainly any kind of an outage that might happen. But cybersecurity is something that we spend a lot of time and money on.
Thank you. Before we thank our distinguished panel and Kevin, I want to remind you all of Rotary on the Road, April the 21st. We're going down to Trill Studios. My encouragement to you all is find a Rotarian you don't know, carpool. Maybe on the way down you can see some data centers with Holder Construction. Skidding in? I've learned a new jargon term. Programming in March has changed. We're pivoting hard. We're finding somebody who can give us some insight on what is going on in Ukraine, speaking of fires burning across the world. And hopefully we'll have an announcement to the club soon. But with all that, Kim, Beth, Tricia, thank you for your service and for relating it to service above self. Kevin, I've already texted my team long utility, short Tesla. My compliance officer would not be very happy with that. But thank you very much for your leadership and a truly informative discussion. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.